Having created some buttons to trigger your macros, you then can customize those buttons to some degree. Let's take these scenarios with buttons file. Now, if you recall creating these buttons, we created the first 2 manually and then the next 4 by copying the first one. So these 5 are all the same size, but the good apple one isn't. Now we can make it the size of the other ones. If we select these, now you can't just click them because they run their macro, but you can right click to get into editing mode and then click on, and then if you hold down the control key, you can multiple select. Now we have 2 selected. Right click, size and properties, brings up the size dialog box. Now we can set the height to be the same by adjusting here, and you can see that they both then run the same height. And the width is different because it's blank, but we can then start altering that, 1/2 inch, or we can make them square. Go to 1 inch each. But having made them 1 inch each, the others should as well. So let's not make them that size. Let's go down to 0.6. So they're 0.6 each. That's a better size. Let's go select the others. So first one has to be right click to get into editing mode, and then you can control click the others. And let's change their height to 0.6 and width to 0.6, and then click away, and they're all the same size. If you then want to do some aligning so that they're equally distance apart, or they're aligned left or aligned right, we can do that as well. We need to again multiple select, so you right click the first and then control click all the others. So these 3 down the left, we can go to the drawing tools because they're just objects, align left to make sure they are all aligned left. There was a slight movement, so they weren't all aligned left. And we can distribute vertically so they're the same distance apart, and do the same with the other 3. So you right click the first one and then control click, align left again and distribute vertically. So they're now all nice and neat and tidy and spread out. We can also color them in. They don't need to be gray with black text. So let's select one, right click, and format the control. Now you can do this as multiple, so you can multiple select all of them, right click, format the control, and it will take us into the same dialog box where we can change the font color. Go for red. We can change the typeface. We can change the size. I might actually go a bit smaller. We can control the alignment of the text on the button. So you can see you can go across, you can go vertical, you can go rotated left, you can go rotated right. We can change the size of the box from here. We can lock an item or lock the text on it. We can control its positioning. At the moment it will move and size with cells. So if the rows and the columns that the box overlaps is resized, then that will affect the button. Now you can stop that from happening by saying don't move or size with cells, or move but don't size with cells, and then the size will always be the same. So let's make that option. Margins within the box, so how close to the edge can the text get? And then there's even alt text, which is placed in the name of our label. So that's everything that you can control on a form button: font, alignment, size, protection, properties about moving, margins, and alt text. Okay, so the button itself will always remain grey. But Guy, you just said we could change the colour of the button. It didn't have to remain grey. Well, unfortunately, these buttons do have to remain grey. However, what we can do from our drawing tools ribbon is actually insert a rectangle shape. So let's choose the rectangle shape and put that over here. And you'll know that you can format these. You can change the colour of them, you can change their outline. You can even give them a bit of drop shadow. I'm going to give mine a green border and an orange fill. But that's just a rectangle on the screen. However, what you can now do, if you right click any of your shapes, so they don't even need to be rectangles, it could be a star or an arrow or a triangle, and you can actually assign a macro to a shape. So assign macro, I'm going to go for bad apple. I then click away, and what I find is when I click this, it gives me the bad apple scenarios. Now that is much trendier, much clever looking, and much more controllable as an object than the form control buttons here. So it's a drawn shape that is now acting as a form button. So we can right click and edit text, so we can actually add text into here so we know what's happening. Bad apple, click away, and you now have a colourful button that will run macros. Instead of inserting form buttons, you just insert shaped objects and assign macros to them. And taking things that logical step further, it doesn't even need to be a drawn shape. It can even be a piece of clip art. If I go to Insert, Illustrations, Online Pictures, and do a search for bad apple, no results. Let's just do a search for apple then. Plenty of results. Oh, there's a bad looking apple. So we'll have that as our picture. Insert. And then just exactly the same as we did for this drawn object, we can right click and assign a macro. And I could give it the bad apple macro. Click away, and that image is now a clickable object that will run the bad apple. So let's insert the good apples and find that the apple core inserts the bad apple figures. So you're not just restricted to these form buttons. In Excel 2013, we can use shapes of any description and even images. You simply right click, assign macro, just as we did for the form buttons.